and protected, so that the way that they would behave in the car is oftentimes different to how they would behave if you met them person to person, stand up in the line at the grocery store, because the car gives them that sense of power and protection and invincibility.
Yes, it certainly does. And don't forget, we're speaking to Dr. Shivan Mahabir. We're talking about aggressive driving and going into some of the reasons why it is so. So from what you're saying, the car sort of becomes an extension of the person's ego. When they get into it, they're on the road, it becomes an extension of their ego.
Yes, that's right. So that, they will oftentimes make up for their own feelings of shortcoming by the way that they act in the car. So if you, for instance, had a stressful day at work and your boss gave you a hard time, you're taking that frustration with you into the car on the drive home. And that frustration can then be shown to the other drivers on the road.
Right. So for those drivers who may be recognizing themselves in what you're saying right now, how can they go about correcting the situation? What are the messages that you would say to them right now? How you can go about driving in a safer way? Because I'm sure everybody, no matter how you drive on the road currently, you want to get home safely to your loved ones or to do whatever you need to do. What can you say to them?
Right. So they say that you shouldn't drive while you're angry, obviously.
Yes.
You shouldn't drive while tired. You shouldn't drive while you are intoxicated if you've been drinking. You also need to be very careful using phones, and that doesn't just mean handheld phones. Studies have shown that even using the Bluetooth system, the hands-free phones, they can be just as distracting as using a phone that you're holding in your hand, because it takes your attention off the road, and that's the real problem. It's not holding the phone, but it's the fact that your attention is diverted into the phone call, and therefore you can't fully take in what's going on around you. Something else to keep in mind is that we often overestimate our driving skills, and we often overestimate the fact that we overestimate how much of the information around us we're taking in. We think we're in full control of all the situation around us, when studies have shown that really and truly there's a lot of information going on around us that we are not consciously taking in and factoring in, so that is all things that leads to accidents.
Yeah, and the other part to that, in terms of the driving ability, you also don't know the driving ability of the person who is on the road with you, especially when I'm thinking about two-lane roads, where you have a situation where the road narrows, and some people assume that perhaps if you have a level of driving ability, the other person perhaps has a similar level. You don't know if this person is a new driver, if they're an older person, their sight is not. You find that situation where people underestimate or overestimate sometimes the driving ability of the people around them.
Yes, that's correct. And you're right, there are a lot of factors that can affect the other person's driving ability. As you say, age. So the person will have a lot of experience of driving, but their actual physical coordination in terms of mashing the gas pedal and the brake and so on can be impaired as time goes on. Young people will not be able to judge the width of the car and the width of the road. So these are all things that you need to consider as you're entering that situation.
I like that point about the estimation of the length of the car and that sort of thing, because I've found that in my own driving that while I'm able to estimate very well the front of the car, let's say if I try to park as close to an object in front, I can do that within a few inches. But however, the back of the car, I underestimate the space in some way. I'm about 3 feet off. I don't know if you've noticed that in your park. I'm sure you must be a good parker in terms of parking the car. But you notice that in different sides of the car, right, away from you, you have a different levels.
My car, the way my car is, because I'm sitting high, to look out the back to get the gauge of the distance is very difficult.
Right.
So thankfully, my car comes with a reverse camera, which is very helpful, because otherwise it would be much more difficult, given the way the car is set up,
yes,
to judge the distance at the back.
Yeah, one day I'll get to where you are, Dr. Mahabir. I'll be able to afford one of those. But anyway, let me just take you into a different area of this look at aggressive driving. Is there a gender difference? Do women, there's an ad which says that women are better drivers and they don't drive aggressively. That's not true at all, because you do see also very aggressive women drivers. Yeah, I know you're going to be unpopular if you say something again.
And I don't want to disparage anybody.
Exactly.
I know that yes, the anecdotal evidence, the anecdotal story is that men are better than women. I don't know if that's true. I think that men can be actually quite more aggressive on the road than ladies.
And in terms of women, but it does exist that there are women who are aggressive drivers. I don't know if the research does bear that out.
Well, in both genders, there will be, people who drive cautiously and people who take more risks. What I like I said, I don't want to make any generalizations at this point.
Okay. Well, the plural of anecdotes would be data. I guess we could go on to that at some point. Drugs and alcohol use. You did mention it earlier that this is a factor in aggressive driving. I don't know if you could speak a little bit to the dangers of drugs and alcohol use while driving.
So the relationship with drug and alcohol use and driving is actually multifactorial, because obviously if you are under the influence of a substance such as alcohol, your reaction time is slowed, which makes you more likely to get into an accident. But also, from a psychological point of view, persons who use drugs are often sensation-seeking and often have less impulse control than other persons. And those two factors have been shown to correlate with persons being more aggressive on the road. So just the fact that you're using drugs means that there's an underlying psychological factor that also predisposes you to driving recklessly.
Right. So we've gone through quite a lot in terms of aggressive driving. Maybe a final statement from you in terms of this particular topic before we let you go, Dr. Mahabir?
I would just encourage everyone to try to be as safe as possible on the road. Drive for yourself and others. Unfortunately, the people who need to hear this message may not be the ones to take it on. So it means that we as safe drivers, cautious drivers, need to try to drive more cautiously to make up for them.
Yes, certainly. Good message to end off here. We look out for those who are not looking out for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahabir, for joining us today, and we'll